He was known as a quiet billionaire, not the loud type. No flashy interviews, no social media drama. Just a man who built a fortune so big that people assumed his family must adore him for it. But money has a strange way of hiding the truth. And one evening, sitting alone in his private study, this man asked himself a question that would change everything. If all this disappeared tomorrow, would they still care? Before we go deeper, if stories like this keep you thinking long after the video ends, tap the like button and subscribe, because this one will hit closer to home than you expect. Now let me take you inside his world. This man, let's call him Richard Hale, was in his early 60s, self-made, started from nothing, built companies, created jobs, and quietly became worth hundreds of millions. To the public, he was successful. To business partners, he was respected. But inside his own home, he felt invisible. Family dinners felt rushed. Conversations always ended with requests. College fees, business ideas, luxury trips, emergency needs that always somehow involved money. Nobody asked how he slept at night. Nobody noticed the weight he had lost. Nobody cared when he went silent for days. And one night, after a routine medical checkup, his doctor told him something simple but unsettling. You need to slow down. Stress like this can break a man. That sentence stayed with him, because Richard realized something painful. If stress broke him tomorrow, would anyone notice before the will was read? So, he made a decision that would test every relationship in his life. Richard decided to pretend he was seriously sick, not a small illness, not something temporary, something that would make people uncomfortable, something that would demand care, patience, and presence. He told his personal assistant first, then his lawyer, then his doctor, who reluctantly agreed to help keep the secret. And finally, he told his family. At the next family gathering, Richard looked tired on purpose. He moved slower. His voice was weaker. And then he said it. The doctors found something. It's serious. I don't know how much time I have. Silence filled the room. Not shock, not panic, just silence. His eldest son was the first to speak. Is it treatable? Richard nodded slowly. Yes, but it will change my life. The son leaned back and said, well, let's hope insurance covers most of it. That was it. No hug, no follow-up, no offer to stay. If that moment already feels heavy, stay with me and don't forget to subscribe, because what happened next revealed more than money ever could. His daughter reacted differently. She cried, but not for long. Within minutes, she was asking questions, not about his pain, but about logistics. Should we postpone the vacation? Will this affect the trust? Do we need to restructure anything legally? Richard answered calmly, hiding the sting behind his eyes. His youngest son barely looked up from his phone. Let me know if you need anything, he said casually. Then he left early. That night, Richard sat alone in his bedroom, listening to the silence of a house filled with people who didn't see him. And that's when the real test began. Over the next few weeks, Richard slowly withdrew. He canceled meetings, stopped attending social events, let calls go unanswered. He wanted to see who would show up, without being asked. Days passed, then weeks. The house help checked on him more than his own children. One afternoon, Richard collapsed intentionally in the hallway, not dangerously, just enough to raise concern. The staff rushed him to bed. His family? They were informed. But nobody rushed home. That night, lying in bed, Richard stared at the ceiling and realized something devastating. They loved the provider, not the person. If this story is making you reflect on your own family relationships, hit like and share it, because someone else might need to hear this too. But then, something unexpected happened. His niece, someone he rarely spoke to, showed up. No announcement, no request, just concern. She brought soup, sat by his bed, asked real questions. How are you feeling? Really? Are you scared? Do you want company? Richard almost broke down, because that was the first time anyone had asked. She started coming every day. She cleaned, she cooked, she listened. No talk about money, no future plans, just presence. And that's when Richard understood the difference between access and affection. As weeks passed, his condition at least the one he pretended to have worsened. He told his family he might need constant care. The reactions were revealing. One child suggested hiring full-time nurses. Another suggested moving him to a private facility. Nobody suggested moving in. Nobody offered to stay, except the niece. She quit a part-time job to be there. She held his hand when he pretended to be weak. She listened when he spoke about regrets. She treated him like a human being, not a wallet. And that changed everything. If you're still watching, subscribe now. Because the ending of this story carries a lesson money cannot buy. Eventually, Richard decided the test had gone far enough. He invited everyone to a family meeting. They came quickly, concerned now, but for different reasons. He looked healthier that day, stronger, calmer, and then he told them the truth. "I'm not dying," he said. There was no terminal illness. The room exploded. Anger, confusion, accusations. "How could you lie to us? Do you know how stressful this was?" Richard listened quietly. Then he spoke. "I didn't lie to hurt you. I lied to see who cared when money wasn't involved." Silence again. But this time, it was heavy. He explained everything. The loneliness, the neglect, the absence. And then he did something no one expected. He changed his will, not out of anger, out of clarity. He rewarded presence, not bloodlines alone. Support, not entitlement. Love, not obligation. The niece, who showed up without being asked, became a central part of his future plans. The others received enough, but no longer everything. Some were furious. Some were ashamed. But Richard felt peace for the first time in years. Because he finally knew the truth. And the truth set him free. Before this video ends, take a moment and ask yourself, if everything you had disappeared tomorrow, who would still show up? If this story moved you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs this reminder. Because sometimes, the greatest wealth isn't money. It's knowing who truly cares when there's nothing left to gain. He didn't become a billionaire by trusting emotions. He trusted numbers, timing, discipline. But the one thing Richard Hale never learned to measure was love. And that realization came quietly. Not in a boardroom. Not during a business deal. It came late at night, sitting alone in a mansion that felt far too big for one man. If you've ever felt alone, even when surrounded by people, stay with me. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because this story speaks to something many families avoid talking about. Richard grew up poor, very poor. The kind of poor where lights went out without warning, where meals were stretched, where dreams were postponed because survival came first. That hunger shaped him. It taught him that money meant safety, that wealth meant respect, that success meant you would never be ignored again. So he chased it. Years passed. Decades passed. He built companies while others slept, missed birthdays, missed school events, missed quiet moments that can never be replayed. But every sacrifice came with a promise he made to himself. One day, they'll understand. By the time he reached his 60s, Richard had everything he once prayed for. Private jets, luxury homes, influence. But the laughter in his house felt rehearsed. The hugs felt quick. The conversations always ended the same way. How much will it cost? And slowly, without realizing it, he became useful, not valued. That truth hurts more than any illness. If you're feeling that weight right now, tap the like button, because you're not alone, and this story isn't just entertainment. The fake illness was never meant to punish anyone. It was meant to reveal something. And once the test began, Richard started paying attention to details he had ignored for years. Who called without being reminded? Who stayed on the phone longer than necessary? Who listened instead of talking? He noticed how his phone rang less. How text messages became shorter. "How are you?" turned into "Any updates?" Concern turned into inconvenience. One evening, he overheard a phone call he wasn't supposed to hear. His eldest son was talking to his spouse. "This sickness thing is dragging. Dad's becoming difficult. Everything is on hold." Richard closed his bedroom door quietly, not angry, just tired. That night, he wrote in a notebook for the first time in years. Not business notes, not strategies, questions. Did I teach them this? Did I replace presence with provision? Is this my fault? That self-reflection hurt more than rejection. And yet, he kept going with the test. Because sometimes the truth only appears when comfort disappears. Weeks later, Richard's condition was said to decline further. He needed help standing, help eating, help with simple tasks. Nurses came and went, but family visits became scheduled, limited, controlled. They came with an agenda, short visits, polite smiles, quick exits, until one day, something small happened that changed the emotional direction of everything. His niece forgot her phone charger at his house. She came back late at night to get it. She found Richard awake, struggling quietly. No nurses around, no staff nearby. She didn't panic. She didn't complain. She just sat beside him, held a glass of water to his lips, and said softly, "You don't have to be strong right now." That sentence cracked something inside him, because nobody had said that to him in decades. From that moment on, she became his anchor. She talked to him about life, about fear, about aging, about regret. And Richard finally admitted something out loud. "I'm afraid I raised children who don't know how to love me." She didn't argue. She didn't defend them. She simply said, "Then let them learn." That night, Richard slept peacefully for the first time since the test began. If this story is touching something personal for you, pause for a second and subscribe, because the lesson ahead is powerful. As time went on, the family began arguing not about Richard's health, but about what came after. Who would take over which role? Who deserved what? Who had sacrificed more? They spoke as if he were already gone, and that told him everything he needed to know. So Richard made his final move, the reveal. He asked everyone to come together, not urgently, but formally. When they arrived, they expected bad news. Instead, they saw a man sitting upright, clear-eyed, calm. No oxygen, no weakness. Confusion spread across their faces. And then Richard stood up. "I need to tell you something," he said. And in that moment, power shifted. He explained the test slowly, why he did it, what he observed, what he felt. He didn't accuse. He didn't shout. He spoke like a man who finally understood his own worth. Some cried. Some became defensive. Some stayed silent. But none could deny the truth. He ended with this: "I don't regret providing for you. I regret not teaching you how to show up." Then he revealed the changes, not punishments, adjustments. Resources would now follow responsibility. Support would follow care. Love would be valued, not assumed. And when it was over, Richard felt lighter, not because he was rich, but because he was finally honest. Before this video ends, ask yourself one question. If someone you love stopped giving, would you still give back? If this story moved you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Because sometimes, the greatest test of love is what happens when comfort is removed. And sometimes, pretending to be sick reveals a truth that health never could.